Welcome. It's so great to see all of you. We're going to get started in just a second. It's 3:01. Today I'm going to be sharing another reading tip with you. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. Happy Thursday. Good afternoon, everybody. If you're here with me, you can say hello in the chat. I'm waving to you. Happy Thursday and welcome to Springboard's Facebook Live virtual family workshops. Today I'm going to be sharing a special reading tip with you. It's actually one of my favorite ones, and it's called You Read to Me, I Read to You. This workshop helps students sound more like a storyteller, and it's a good way to mix it up to kind of liven up at-home reading time with your scholar. Happy Thursday, welcome. Today's reading tip is called You Read to Me, I Read to You. This workshop helps children enjoy and engage. In this workshop, I will share ways that you can read with your child. In order for children to grow as readers, a child should work on reading fluently or sounding like a storyteller. If you take turns reading to them and having them read to you, you can help them to hear what fluent reading sounds like. So first off, right off top, I just want to say thank you for joining us today and welcome. I always like to start off our workshops by knowing who's in the room in this virtual space with me. So if you could drop in the chat where you are tuning in from, as well as the age or grade of a scholar that you support. So I can model that. I am Latrice Simmons, and I have a 16-year-old scholar that I support, but I support elementary age students all across San Francisco and California. If you have a scholar that you read with or a young person that you read with, can you please drop in the chat the grade or age of that scholar, as well as where you're tuning in from. As you're doing that, let me tell you a little bit about Springboard. Springboard is a nonprofit that helps educators and family members become at-home reading coaches. One way that we do this is through our family workshops. In our workshops, teachers, families, and kids focus on a reading tip and practice reading together. We are so excited that you joined us today. So I can see that Philly is in the house. What's up, Philly? Oh, and you have an 8-year-old nephew. And you know, one of the things that I love about Springboard is that it's not always just mom and dad, but whoever supports a young person with their literacy is welcome and has a seat at the table to learn these wonderful strategies that you can use as an at-home reading coach. Oh, Oakland, yes, across the Bay Area, yes. Thank you for being here. So again, my name is Latrice Simmons, and I am a Springboard Family Workshop facilitator. I also am an educator in San Francisco. I support elementary age students, and I also coach and support teachers. Today, my hope is to share a reading strategy with you that'll inspire you and that will liven up your at-home reading time. Speaking of livening up at-home reading time, today's tip is called You Read to Me, I Read to You. Before we jump into today's tip, is there a game that you like to play with your scholar or with your young person? I would love to hear how you've been spending your shelter in place time. So if there's a special game that you play with your young person, please drop that game into the chat, or it could even be an activity that you enjoy doing with your scholar or your young person. For me, like I said, my son is 16, so he kind of likes to be to himself a lot. But when he is in the game mood, we play dominoes. and there's no mercy. I play to win. So if there's a game that you enjoy playing with your scholar, you can drop that in the chat as well, and you'll see why I'm building this up. Oh, Legos. Legos is, I'm reading the chat, and Legos is a great activity that you can spend time doing with your scholar, and it helps the brain in lots of different ways. So keep those ideas coming. You know, since we're all sheltered in place, things are starting to open, but some of these ideas can help you. And it's just about enjoying the time that we spend with our young people, and that reading and schoolwork and even Legos and dominoes. Dominoes is a mathematic game, and Legos has a lot about conceptual building and putting things together. So all of these activities help our scholars to be the best that they can be, and they are all connected together. So if you can think of some additional activities, please drop those in the chat. We can always learn from each other. But right now, we're going to jump into today's reading tip. Again, it's you read to me, I read to you. Here are the steps, and these steps are so much fun. First, you're going to review what sounding like a storyteller means, because no one likes a boring read aloud, right? We want lots of expression and excitement, just like how I like to talk, with lots of expression and excitement. We take turns reading aloud, and that's also fun, that before you read, you and your scholar can decide how you'd like to read together. And then finally, specific praise. So we're going to go deep into what that specific praise means, but right now I'll just touch on it a little bit. And, you know, like, remember those stickers you used to get back in school that say terrific or wow? They made you feel really good. But specific praise, like, wow, you did such a great job with, can really motivate your scholar, your reader, to want to do that particular thing even more. So hold on to your seats. We're going to jump in to today's strategy. So again, the first step is to review what sounding like a storyteller means. A lot of times in school, they call this robotic reading, like, I am reading a story, the story is great. And that's me exaggerating what reading like a robot is, right? Reading like a robot is reading without expression. And the thing that's not so great about that is that the authors of books put in so much colorful language, so many adjectives and describing words with emotions. And if you read it like this, it was a bright, sunny day, and I enjoy this day with my child. It's different than it was a bright and sunny day, and I enjoyed this day with my child. I don't know about you, but which one would you want to hear, right? So I'm going to model this with a couple of my favorite stories, what sound like a storyteller actually sounds like. Sounding like you are in the library or on that show Reading Rainbow, where you are so engaged with the text. And this is something that all readers can try. As we go with this, I forgot to mention, as we go through today's workshop, if you have any questions or comments, I've got my eye on the chat. Go ahead and drop in any questions, comments, and I will be sure to read what you're putting in the chat. It's just to make it feel like we're in the same room together. We may not be in the same building together, but we are seeing each other. We are together in this work. So any comments and questions, strategies that you have that are tied to today's tip, drop those in the chat. I'd love to read them. So if you've got a younger scholar, Piggy Elephant books by Mo Willems are the greatest. And right now I'm going to model what read like a storyteller sounds like. So in this book, I'm just going to flip, as you see that I've already marked a page. In this book, some of the speech bubbles are large, and I think that ties to how that page should sound. Some of the speech bubbles are very small, but it's a very, very expressive text where you can see Piggy and Elephant getting along with each other and having experiences. So on this page that I tagged, oh wow, look at that. On this page that I tagged, if I can get to it, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it to you as if I am not reading like a storyteller. I'm going to model the incorrect. Don't do this with your children. But this is how it sounds when you are not reading like a storyteller. What are two birds doing on my head? They're in love. Now, that's fine. I didn't make any mistakes with the text, but it wasn't engaging. I didn't sound like a storyteller. Now, watch me ham it up and read it like a storyteller. What are two birds doing on my head? They're in love. So that's an example of reading like a storyteller. Notice that I paid close attention to the punctuation. My voice went up at the end of a question. And with this exclamation sentence, and I'm looking at Piggy's little face, let me see. He's so cute, or she's so cute. And I'm imagining how Piggy would have responded to Elephant with those two birds sitting on his head. So that's with one text. And so Piggy and Elephant books are typically for younger readers. But again, you can always enjoy books of any level with your scholars at home. So that's one quick little example. Another book, I don't know about you, but in my classroom, we had to spend some time learning how to share, and that everything in our classroom community is for all of us, not just one person. So this book is called Minosaur, because everything cannot just be for you. And I'm going to read it in a flat voice where I am not engaged. I'm not sounding like a storyteller. He snatched the jump rope and the ball. He threw the cars against the wall. And then he roared to one and all, mine, mine, mine. And you can see that it was hard for me to do it without expression because I just can't help it. And it's not as fun when you don't read it with expression. I'm going to read it one more time where I sound like a storyteller, paying close attention to how certain words are capitalized and any punctuation I may notice. He snatched the jump rope and the ball. He threw the cars against the wall. And then he roared to one and all, mine, mine, mine. So this is the way that I, Latrice, imagine that this crazy dinosaur is talking about his cars and his materials. He doesn't want to share them. And my voice is showing that emotion. And I believe that that's the way that the author had intended it. And it makes it so much fun. You can use this strategy of sounding like a storyteller even with nonfiction text. So when I read nonfiction text with young people, instead of reading like a storyteller, you read the book like an expert. It makes me think of like the National Geographic Channel, Steve Irwin, and how he would talk about the alligators and the animals that he would see out in the African savannah or wherever in the rainforest or wherever he is, explaining his experience. And when children read nonfiction text, they can sound like a storyteller with fiction text, but with nonfiction, you want to sound like an expert. So this time, I'm just going to practice sounding like an expert. Ooh, one of my favorite animals. Meet the lion. Lions are mammals. Their fur is on one solid color, tan, brown, or dark tan. They have no stripes or no spots on their fur. Lions have an unforgettable face. So even with nonfiction text, I can make my voice go higher and lower. I can sound like the people on the animal planet. And it makes your scholar, your young person, want to read more. So as they are choosing text to read at home, for this strategy or for any strategy, remind them, you want to sound like a storyteller. You want to sound like an expert. Oh, I see in the chat that people love books about animals. Yes, a lot of the children love this series, Who Would Win? So if you have access to books, the Who Would Win, and there's so many of them, try this one with your scholar. They're very, very good nonfiction texts. So we just reviewed the first step, and you read to me, I read to you, which is read like or sound like a storyteller. The second step is to take turns reading out loud. And there's many ways to do that. So one little way that you can take turns reading out loud is an echo read. And this one would be perfect for your younger scholars, for your kindergarten, first grade, or even some of your struggling readers, the echo read. And it makes me think of bats and echolocation. So echo means that I read and then my child reads and copies me. So if I read it like a robot with no expression, my child will read it like a robot with no expression. If I ham it up and read it with tons of expression, my child is going to read it with so much expression, and we're going to giggle and have fun together. So in my little graphic, I have here that the story that they're reading about in the theme of Halloween, if you want to think of it that way, the parent is reading a text that says, "What a big spider! What a big hairy spider." And then the child copies that and says, "What a big hairy spider," in the same way that their older family member has read it out loud. So echo read is when you repeat. So you read first as the adult or older scholar, or person that is the stronger reader, and then the child repeats it. Echo read. Another way that you can read with your young person is a choral read. Choral makes me think of choir, right? Where everyone is singing the song together. And this tip is really good for pacing so that children could practice the pace of a read aloud and the way that a story sounds, that it's not super, super slow and it's not so fast that you can't understand what's going on in the story. So here's the same sentence: "What a big hairy spider," and the parent and the child, or the older sister and the child, or however, whoever you support in your family with literacy, they're reading the story together. And you wouldn't necessarily do this cover to cover with a book, right? That would kind of be strange to read the whole book together at the same time. But you can mix it up where you can do a couple of pages are echo read and a couple of pages are choral read. There's certain parts of stories that have parts that repeat. And so maybe those are the parts before you read the story together, you could give each other roles. So when we get to this part, we'll read this part together, right? So that second reading take turn strategy is the choral read where we read together. My personal favorite is the seesaw. Now, you don't go to the park and sit on a seesaw and then start reading a book. No. The seesaw is just a graphic to help illustrate this, of taking turns, like how the seesaw goes up and down. And then for the seesaw read, you're taking turns. So maybe the child is going to read the first page and it says, "What a big hairy spider." And then the adult says, "I think it's crawling up your arm." Maybe that's the next page or the next sentence. And so for seesaw read, you can decide whose turn it is to read what. So it could be every other sentence. It could be every other page. So mommy reads the first page, then the child reads the second page. It depends on the text, and it depends on what you agree to before you start reading. I'm looking over here because that's where all my stacks of books are. So I have this chapter book. So if you are I saw that in the chat, I'm not sure what grade level, reading level your 8th grade scholar is, or 8-year-old scholar is, excuse me. But if your scholar is in chapter books, the seesaw read is a great one to liven it up, because sometimes chapter books are so long and it takes forever to get to the end of a chapter. But if you assign different pages, I read a page, you read a page. I read a paragraph, you read a paragraph. And you can decide and set that up before you read. The last thing I'll say about it is that it doesn't have to be an equal amount. The whole point is that we want our scholar to be the one carrying the load and doing most of the reading. So you may want to have it set up to where you read a paragraph, they read 2 paragraphs for the seesaw read, especially children who are in longer pieces of text like a chapter book. So right now we just went over step 2, which is take turns reading aloud. We went over seesaw reading, which honestly is my favorite one, right? Because it's the child gets to do more of the heavy lifting, more of the work. Choral read, when you read the story together at the same time. And echo read, where the older person probably will say a sentence first, and then the child will repeat, sounding like a storyteller, the same way that their older scholar or model or parent has shown them how to sound, right? Which is so much fun. And so here we are. Wow, this is going fast. And now we are on step 3. And again, if anybody has any questions or comments, you can add them into the chat. But step 3 is my favorite part, which is taking turns to give specific praise. And I mentioned that at the beginning of this workshop today, where, you know, those little stickers that our teachers used to get. I used to like the little scratch and sniff stickers. But a lot of those stickers said things like, wow, terrific, great. But what did I do that was so terrific? What did I do that was so great? So what we want to do is offer our scholars, our readers, some specific praise. And with time, it will go back and forth. So it's not just me as mommy, the older adult, that I'm able to read, pretty much any piece of text, and I'm just going to be the one telling you what you did a good job at. Where there's an exchange, and that's what makes the praise part fun and more meaningful. Where the scholar, where the child, the reader can also give praise to their parents. And what you're doing by doing that is that you're pinpointing the moves that I keep saying mommy, the same moves that mommy made when she read her book, or the same moves that your auntie made when she read the book out loud to you. You're able to name those things. What are you talking about, Latrice? I made this little anchor chart for us. And these are just a couple, just to get our minds going. But I'll just call out a couple of them. So compliment starters. One example of a compliment starter for I give you a compliment, you give me a compliment, could be, I like how you read all of the pages with so much expression. I like how you sounded like a storyteller. I'm just going to pick another one at random. See how that was specific? It wasn't just like, I like how you read, but I liked the way that you sounded like a storyteller. Here's another one. That was a great way to stop and pause at commas. You didn't just run through those commas like stop signs. You stopped at the comma and paused, and then you proceeded, right? Let's do one more. Let's see. Nice work showing. Nice work showing the emotions of the characters you're reading about. So again, with these compliment starters, you are giving some examples and some praise to your child to model the desired behavior, which was for them to read like a storyteller. And then your child gets to say, you know what? I really like the way you read too. And your child can give you some sentence starters to give you a compliment. I like it when you read to me. I like it when we read together and we laugh at the funny parts. I like it when you made different voices for each character. And so those are some examples of the ways that you can compliment each other, take turns complimenting each other after you are reading together. So guess what? Time sure does fly when you're having fun. We've pretty much reached the end of this tip. So again, the steps were to review what sounds like sounding like a storyteller, to read with lots of fluency and expression, and your eyes are big and you're using hand gestures. So sound like a storyteller, you want to review that with your scholar. Secondly, the second thing you want to do is figure out how you're going to read this text. Are we going to choral read? Are we going to seesaw read? Are we going to echo read? And then finally, again, sorry, it's my favorite part. Finally, you're going to take turns giving specific praise. I like it when you. Oh, well, I loved it when you. And then take turns praising each other. I'm looking into the chat because I was really getting into it. And I'm seeing so many wonderful stories and comments from the people in the room with me today. And it is true, Sabrina, that sometimes our children will get frustrated. Sometimes our children will get frustrated as they read. But when you're having fun with each other, it kind of takes the pressure off that we don't have to be perfect all the time. And one of the things that I love is that mistakes make our brain grow, right? Making mistakes makes us better. And you know what? We're in this together. We can rehearse, right? So I hope that you enjoyed today's family workshop. There's a couple little things I want to let you know. Um, you can drop your final ideas into the chat or any lingering questions. On Springboard's collaborative website, you can find additional family workshops there and other activities you can do to support your child to sound like a storyteller or scoop up words. There's so many great at-home reading tips that you can use. Also, my very good friend Ruby will be doing the same family workshop in just a moment in Spanish. So please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and again, today is the 22nd, so she's going to be presenting You Read to Me, I Read to You in Spanish at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Next week, we're going to do another fun strategy, which I also love, called I Spy. And then in November, it's amazing that we're already heading into November. On the 5th, we'll be doing Be a Text Detective. Ooh, that sounds exciting, where we're going to be looking at text features of nonfiction text. And finally, on the 12th, we're going to do Share a Story. So I hope that you enjoyed today's family workshop. Please come back next Thursday. Again, the times are 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for family workshops. And in Spanish, our family workshops are at 7 Eastern Standard Time and 4 Pacific Standard Time, because we are just global, right? From coast to coast, we're helping our children read, and we're reading with our kids at home and supporting them with their literacy. I hope that you enjoyed today's family workshop. I had so much fun with you. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. I hope that some people will come back and see Ruby with her Spanish family workshop. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, families.